America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. The crisis we're facing today does not require of us the kind of sacrifice that Martin Treptow and so many thousands of others were called upon to make. It does require, however, our best effort and our willingness to believe in ourselves and to believe in our capacity to perform great deeds, to believe that together, with God's help, we can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And after all, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans. God bless you and thank you. Thank you very much.
Born in Illinois, Ronald Wilson Reagan was the 40th President of the United States, well known for his friendly demeanor and appealing speaking skills. Known as the Great Commentator, Reagan was a popular two-term President of the United States. Although his legacy is well known now, his path to success was a difficult journey. Reagan grew up with an alcoholic father, and he lived in an apartment lacking basic necessities. After his father died, his mother took on the responsibility of raising him and his siblings in her church, the Disciples of Christ. However, his rough childhood did not prevent him from achievement. Reagan was president of the student body and received many accomplishments in numerous sports. Later, he enrolled in Eureka College with a major in economics. He made an oration for those who were striking to restore classes that the school administration eliminated because of financial issues after the Great Depression. His ability to entice the audience would later foreshadow his presidency to come. After college, Reagan got a job as a radio broadcaster for a small outlet, later transferring to NBC where he talked about sports. He later became an actor for Warner Brothers and a member of the U.S. Army Cavalry Reserve, where he was made to be a second lieutenant after the Pearl Harbor attack. During filming, he married his wife, Jane Wyman, who he later divorced 9 years later after giving birth to 3 children. Reagan later became a member of the Screen Actors Guild, otherwise known as the SAG, where he worked to clear the names of those who were falsely accused of being communist and campaigned for Democratic candidates. He was a spokesperson for General Electric Company, where he promoted ideas of individual freedom and anti-communism. While Reagan supported FDR for providing work for his father and brother, he later became a Republican in 1962 after meeting his second wife, Nancy Reagan, whose conservative views encouraged him to switch, and his economic gain that came from being a successful actor in Hollywood. Ronald Reagan first stepped into the national spotlight after giving a well-received speech for Republican presidential candidate Barry Goldwater. After gaining experience speaking to a large audience and recognition, Ronald Reagan ran to become the governor of California. He ran against Democrat candidate Edmund G. Brown, who ridiculed Reagan for his lack of experience. However, the public liked Reagan for his genuineness, humor, and cheerful character, becoming the governor of California for 2 terms. Some of his most notable accomplishments include freezing government hiring and approving tax hikes to resolve one of the largest budget deficits in Californian history and enacting reform of the welfare system. After achieving success as governor, he made several unsuccessful bids for the Republican presidential nomination. Finally, he and George H.W. Bush went against Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale, becoming the 40th President of the United States. The Reagan administration came into the White House determined to stop the spread of communism around the world and defeat the Soviet Union, who he famously referred to as an evil empire in the Cold War. As Reagan's presidency went along, his views on the Soviet Union and his plans to defeat communism changed quite a lot. During his first term in office, Reagan authorized America's largest military buildup in history and placed nuclear missiles in a number of NATO countries to counter the Soviet Union. This escalated the tensions of the Cold War, which was a shift from the détente that was occurring before his first term. In the Reagan Doctrine, he funded freedom fighters in places like Afghanistan, where he supplied the Mujahideen with arms in their fight against the Soviet Union. He also supported UNITA in Angola and the Contras, who were trying to overthrow a Marxist government in Nicaragua. However, this proved controversial as some of the groups Reagan funded would commit human rights violations of their own. For example, the Contras would attack schools, hospitals, and went after civilian targets and social leaders. This led to the Iran-Contra affair, which was the largest scandal that hit the Reagan administration. The base of the scandal was that Reagan was taking money from secret arms sales to Iran and giving it to the Contras despite it being outlawed by Congress. It was later ruled that the U.S. violated international law and breached treaties with Nicaragua by the International Court of Justice. Despite Reagan's reputation for being a big military guy, he was quite afraid of war, but said that if we did have a war, he wanted U.S. soldiers to be as well equipped as possible. This fear of nuclear war, and war in general, is most likely why he and Mikhail Gorbachev eased tensions between the US and Soviet Union greatly during Reagan's second term in office. When Mikhail Gorbachev took power in the Soviet Union in 1985, the two leaders worked together in an attempt to end the Cold War with policies like glasnost, which means openness, and perestroika, which helped reform the Communist Party in the Soviet Union. The two leaders met in Geneva in 1985 and agreed to reduce their military budgets. In 1986, they met in Iceland to tell the world they would attempt to eliminate all nuclear weapons by 1996. The Cold War finally looked like it was coming to an end. In 1989, the Berlin Wall had fallen, reuniting East and West Germany, which marked the symbolic end of the Cold War. However, it didn't officially end until the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. By this time, the Soviet Union's economy was in shambles, and they could no longer keep up with America on the world stage. After the Cold War ended, America was left as the only superpower in the world. However, this didn't happen until after Reagan's presidency had concluded, yet the end of the war remains a large part of Reagan's foreign policy legacy. In order to rebuild the economy, Reagan came up with a strategy he called Reaganomics. Reaganomics were a series of economic policies associated with the reduction of taxes and the promotion of unrestricted free market activity. President Reagan also thought reducing certain social programs and deregulation of businesses would contribute to rebuilding the economy. Reagan did increase military spending, but only because he was very intent on ending the Cold War and making peace with the Soviet Union. By 1983, the nation started to recover and entered a period of prosperity due to Reagan's policies to rebuild the economy. However, some people believed his policies only favored the rich and led to budget deficits which raised national debt. However, the people mostly favored Reagan's policies to rebuild the economy. He also changed the course of history when he appointed the first woman to U.S. Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor. This move brought more equality to the Supreme Court and showed how society has progressed as women now hold important places in American politics. Ronald Reagan is known for many things during his 2 terms as president due to his involvement in the Cold War, trickle-down economics, and larger-than-life character. Reagan took office in the middle of the Cold War and achieved what many believed was impossible, which was a peaceful resolution to the ideological battle that was plaguing the world. His "Tear Down This Wall" speech at the Berlin Wall marked the end to an era of tensions, but he also made a huge impact in American domestic policy. His trickle-down economics and Reaganomics, which lowered taxes, helped rebuild America's crumbling economy. Along with this, he achieved his principal goal in reducing the marginal tax rate, which was 70% when he took office, and was reduced to 28% when he left office. Reagan's policies and likable demeanor helped him win a landslide re-election victory and usher in a Republican revolution across the country. To this day, if you watch any Republican presidential debate, the candidates will often compare their policies to Reagan's and will hold him as the gold standard for modern Republican presidents. His presidency was one mixed with scandal and tensions. However, it greatly changed the course of American history.